Happy solstice, everyone. Joe March here, aka the Psycho Sorcerer, and today we're talking about a very interesting topic. Is my personal practice actually magic? As a recap, I recently started a video series that I'm calling Psycho Sorcerer 2.0, where I go over a bunch of fundamentals related to magic once again, but with a fresh coat of paint, a fresh set of eyes, talking about it with all the experience that I have so far. At this point, there are 4 videos in that series. They're all available in the Psycho Sorcerer 2.0 playlist, and if you watch those 4 videos, not only are they some very solid fundamentals on magic and the occult, they are also the overview of the entirety of my current day practice. So if anybody has been asking, hey, Joe March, hey, Psycho Sorcerer, what is your current practice like? But you saw those videos and said, oh, I know these fundamentals and didn't watch them. Over the course of those 4 videos, I describe my current day practice. So if you're interested in that, go back, watch those videos in order. All 4 of them, you'll have a full understanding of what I do. The TLDR version of that, in case you don't want to go back and watch all those, is that I mostly view a lot of magic in the occult as connection with the subconscious mind, but I believe that the subconscious itself has a greater connection to the all, and thus you are connecting to everything whenever you're doing these practices. Now, during my 3rd video where I talk about modern magic and spellcasting, I made a statement that I don't do this kind of magic anymore, that I don't do magic spells anymore, but I do all the other stuff that I'm talking about, and the principles of how to do a spell was important in order to explain more. However, at the end of my 4th video, with all of my practice explained, I got this comment in the comment section, and it was one of those comments that made me pause and start thinking about some shit. It starts out in reference to what I was just talking about, how the subconscious is really what you're interacting with, and says, it's all in your head, you just have no idea how big your head is, as Lon Milo DuQuette puts it. And for those who don't know Lon Milo DuQuette, he's a great occult author. He has a lot of his works where he's read them out loud. If you want to just listen to some of his works and get an idea of what he's about, you can find him. He does that on Facebook. He does like a daily reading type of thing, or at least he used to. And a lot of those things have also been translated into YouTube. So if you look up Lon Milo DuQuette, you can hear some of his works. You can get an idea for him if you're interested in that. And he, like me, believes that you are interacting with something in your mind, but it is connected to this greater, what he calls the greater G, but what I would call the all, or the source, or the grand infinity, as my old channel name used to be. But that's not the end. That part warmed me up because I was like, yeah, we're talking about the same thing. We are on the same level. This is a person in this comment who gets what I'm laying down, and we're on the same page. And then he says, by the way, dude, you are doing magic. So past Joe years ago would have been like, hey, wait, I said I'm not. What is this? And had all this defensiveness. Past Joe back then used to not understand how peers with constructive criticism can help you to grow. Current day Joe has gone through so much transformation that I just automatically go into that mode whenever I hear something that's the opposite of what I said. The very first instinct I have now is not to deflect, but rather to go, is this correct? And as I reflected, even in just a few seconds, I started to crack up, laughing out loud at how foolish the statement that I don't do magic is when I just went into all this transformative self-transformation stuff that I'm into, specifically because what came to my mind was Western ceremonial occultism and how it starts out for most people as a desire to go get things, like bring money into your life and whatever, but it almost always changes into the same search that I'm in right now, to the point where Thelemites and people like that specifically have all of this rigid routine just to try to get into communication with what they call the holy guardian angel or the higher self, and that is the same exact thing that I'm communicating with, the same thing that I'm talking about. The same subconscious self, which seems like a different person than you, but connects you to this all, is that holy guardian angel thing that they're after, that they spend years and years working towards. So, to say that doing that is not magic is actually laughable when you think of it from that point of view, and so I cracked up. So my immediate response was, I suppose you're right about that. I just couldn't help but laugh and then think, okay, if I don't look at it as magic trying to bring material gain, and I look at it simply as magic causing transformation in the self, or, as I started to ruminate on this, magic causing transformation at all, because changing the self changes who you interact with and changes the world, then yeah, I'm still doing magic according to that logic. Now that should have been where this ended, but my brain doesn't let stuff go whenever I suddenly realize that I've been thinking about something backwards. So, for the next few days, this kept popping into my head at random times when I would see examples of things that I did that matched up with magic. And then I had this realization. It struck me as hilariously funny, so I'm going to share it with you guys. This is how I describe the steps to do modern magic in my third video. First, you decide on an intent or desired outcome. Second, you enter into the trance state, and if you need to know more about that, you can look at my previous video on meditation, the trance state, and shamanic journeying. Third, while in trance, you push your will into the ritual working for its full duration. We'll get back to that. And fourth, let your desires go out into the universe. So what do I mean when I say while in... We don't need to get into that. If you want to know what he means, go back and watch it. But thank you, Past Joe, for explaining all that, because that's pretty simple. That's pretty straightforward, right? Okay, now let's see what steps I explained that I use in my practice in the fourth video. And I can say, how do I contact these entities? Yeah, here we go. And we talked about this already. It's through shamanic journeying. Now I'm leaving these 4 steps on the screen because you're going to see it's still not that different. First, I'm going to decide on which entity I want to speak to and about what. Then I'm going to enter into the trance state on my way to entering into that shamanic journey state, like we talked about in my other video. While I'm in trance, I enter the shamanic journey state, and I keep who I'm trying to talk to and what I want to talk about in mind until I actually start to have that conversation, and then I just focus on keeping myself in that conversation and allowing everything to form as it may and not interfering with it with my mind. And then I say goodbye, I'm respectful, and I leave. It's the same 4 steps. You're going to see this with... I literally described my practice using the same steps that I used to describe magic and spellcasting. And then I have the gall to say I'm not doing magic. I didn't even somehow put this together until this was pointed out to me. I don't know which aspect of this is what was being pointed out to me, but all of this is incredibly hilarious to me personally. And man, Past Joe looks like he is done. He is asleep. So let's amend the past 4 videos, and this is another good example of why this practice is always a practice of learning. Let's amend the past 4 videos and say, do I still practice magic? Absolutely. And I guess it's 100% of what I do. I don't know. This blew my mind for some reason. This one comment just rocked my whole world on this, at least for a second. So what was I trying to say when I was saying I didn't do magic anymore? What was I actually trying to express there? I think what I was trying to say is that I don't do magic for personal gain, like asking for love to come into my life or asking for wealth, the things that most people think of as genie-like requests to receive physical objects and things like that. But as I started to think through this, like maybe I just need to re-explain what I meant, I started to realize that I do use magic to transform the self, and I just described in the magic thing as well that I think what's really happening when you're calling for those things is you're just unknowingly changing the self so that you are more able to receive those things. So really the only difference is that I'm knowingly changing the self instead of believing that I'm changing something else. I didn't stop doing any of the practice, actually. I just changed my perspective on how it works to the point where doing it specifically for something that feels external doesn't make sense to me anymore. But I'm still changing myself, which changes how other people are interacting with me, which changes their experience, which changes what happens between me and them, which changes what happens in the world, etc. I'm still changing other shit by doing this. So I don't think I even have the right to say that I'm not doing anything specifically magical now that I think about it. So as a result of this, I don't know, less than a week of thinking on this after getting one comment, I have to redact my previous statement and say, yes, I do magic. And I guess from a point of view, it's 100% of what I do. So there you have it. Comment redacted. Magic fully accepted. I mean, technically, the whole thing that I'm describing in those 4 videos is that there's this connection to this formless something from which you can bring about change. As I think about it more and more, the more I'm like, I'm just describing magic in other words. But you get the idea. Had to make this video, not just because I felt like, oh, now I need to admit this, but because it just struck me as insanely funny, and it struck me as an example of the types of revelations you have from sharing this type of stuff with other people. Things you'll if you're accepting enough to listen to someone's feedback and then think about it for a second instead of blocking it, as past Joe way back when would have done, you can gain so much insight into yourself and laugh at your own foolishness and then move on and actually gain something from it. Because I feel like accepting this is important, actually. I'm not sure how, but some part of me feels like this was a lesson that I needed to have. Now, additionally to all this caused me to go back and listen to some more of Lon Milo Duquette's stuff, because his name was brought up and I was like, yeah, I like this guy. I want to hear some more of this. And listening to some of it reminded me of something that I didn't put in the steps for the other 4 videos. So if you made it this far, you get an extra little bit of special. And that's that I feel connected to the all the instant that I go into a deep enough trance. It just is automatically within my own mind at this point to assume that throughout the day I am 100% connected to the all and just unaware of it. So when I become focused on that awareness, I am specifically, purposefully invoking that connection. I forget sometimes that that is not a given to everyone. And maybe that should be in the rules of how to do this stuff as well, because when I first started out, I did not think that way. And I used to need to do this practice where, during meditation and trance, you would envision either the universe coming into the self, or some kind of energy coming down into you, or energy coming up from the earth and through your body, or the chakra points gaining energy as they get charged. This conceptual visualization of this other force that is magic, or that is God, or whatever you want to call it, merging and connecting to the self, and then having the authority through you to speak on its behalf as a personification of that force. That process is in so many magical practices as the first thing you learn to do and the first thing you do before any ritual, and yet I neglected to mention it because I don't really think to do it now. It's just automatic. It's like I step into that mode and just assume that I'm connected to all that already, and that feeling of energy and connection just happens within moments for me. So I forget, if you're new to this, that's a step too. You need to pull upon that energy that surrounds and ties and binds us. Now I sound like the Force, as a part of your idea. And it is super, super important to recognize that this power is most well invoked through the emotion of love. So if you have a love and a passion for this particular formless thing that exists, then it's going to be that much stronger, which is another one of the reasons that I say, if you're someone just trying to get something, this is not the practice for you. But if you genuinely want to have a connection with this thing, and more importantly with yourself, then these practices might be for you. But again, at your own risk, there are risks. So before anybody ats me like, I tried to do this stuff you talked about and look how I ended up, I warned you to think about it, to be smart, and to avoid self-delusion, because that is the risky thing. I think and make it sound scarier than it is and cooler than it is, because people are like, oh, there's risks of like demons or something. No, the risk is that you mess up your own brain because you're not careful. The risk comes in allowing yourself to fall into delusional thinking as opposed to using this tool to learn and change the self. If your conscious mind is directing where your change is going, you're actually doing it wrong, in my opinion. Your subconscious should be informing the conscious of change that you need, and you should be deciding to do things in the world to go along with that change. Now, You can choose to do changes that you feel are important, but it should be a full integration thing. You should be making this decision while connected, while within the subconscious. I'll probably have to do a whole video on this. Anyway, what do you guys think? Is my practice magic? I think so now. So I've 180'd on this. I want to give a special thank you to the commenter who left this comment. It's probably there. And I want to thank all of you guys for watching and enjoying this series so far. And until next time, safe travels. Oh, and happy solstice. Yeah, so if you're watching this when it dropped, happy solstice. Enjoy the Yuletide fun.